Gentlemen. Are you ready for a fight?
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you ready?
Right, I love it. They're even like warming up in their corners. Okay, this one's going to be spicy. It's going to be spicy. So I'm Christina Frankopan, and I sit somewhere between TradFi and DeFi. So I'm genuinely neutral in this, and I'm going to provoke you to argue as much as possible. So we've got Benjamin, who is working on TradFi-based stablecoins. Can I summarize it like that?
I think that's good.
And you'll be debating for TradFi. And we have Grant from Etherealize, which, if I can summarize the thesis, or caricature the thesis, it's encouraging TradFi to use Ethereum in ways that are consistent with our community ethics. Would that be fair?
I'd say that's right.
Okay, great. And you're going to be debating, let's say, against TradFi, but we're going to see how we find some differences between us. So listen, let's kick things off. We've been saying for years the institutions are coming, or when adoption, and so on and so forth, without really knowing what we want. Okay, now the institutions are here, but actually what we've got is a bunch of ETFs and some new Wall Street products. Is that what we really wanted, Benjamin?
Yeah, so first of all, the ETFs and the products like that, I think not all of them are great, right? But some of them are really nice. Because at the end of the day, what DeFi needs, what a crypto needs, is more liquidity. And that's what TradFi provides. So maybe the ETFs, the Bitcoin ETFs, is more about people buying, so price appreciation. But when you look at things like BITO, like Benji, that's tangible liquidity that's going into into DeFi. So people are integrating that, we're integrating it. And so it gives additional tools to people that maybe are not comfortable with completely decentralized products, right? Like we talked to, let's say, Flow Traders wants to borrow from our lending market. They don't want to borrow USDC because North Korea might have USDC, but they can borrow Benji because they know for sure, North Korea is not there. So I think there are some tools that have been very helpful for TradFi. For DeFi.
You know where else North Korea is?
Where?
They're on the internet. Do you use the internet?
No, I don't know what that is actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you think? You think that these Wall Street kind of products are actually the end game? Is this what we're really after?
Hell no.
No. Okay. What do we want?
Here's what the end game is. The end game is all civilizational infrastructure on Ethereum running itself in a decentralized, autonomous way. That's the end game. Not like some ETF that an L2 foundation bribed to go on their platform and just sit there. That's what I would say.
You're getting a lot of claps. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
He's brought his team. Good, so
there's no astroturfing here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Tactical thinking. All right, Benjamin, you're going to have to work some people over. By the way, I should just say this QR code is for a voting platform. So start voting whenever you're ready. I'll remind you occasionally during the debate, right? And then we'll declare a winner. Right, let's stay with you, Grant. But on custody, okay, the idea was we would be our own bank, but actually what's happened in the service of liquidity provision, we've actually resulted in most of the custody being on a centralized basis. So, what have we done there? Is that what we were going for too?
I custody my own crypto. Probably a lot of the audience does.
Who in the audience self-custodies?
Yeah, look at those hands. Hell yeah.
Right, but still quite a few hands down, okay? So, but having listened to the debate we just had, I don't want to spend too much on custody, but still, most of it is in centralized custodial resources. Is that how are we going to stay true to our values, which is, after all, your mission of staying your own bank, while allowing TradFi to come into the party?
Well, some people, they'll use centralized custodians, and then, maybe they'll get rugged, and then they'll learn their lesson.
Like Bybit, right?
Exactly.
If you're done with your side, I can go to me. I think, there are a lot of people that are using centralized centralized solutions. But think about it: if you have an ice cream shop and everybody wants, chocolate, but you only have vanilla, you're gonna make chocolate just to get them through the door. And then maybe one day you can convince them to have vanilla. It's the same thing with this. Let's get everybody through the door. If Robinhood wants to use a centralized L2, if people want to use multi-sigs to hold the money in their centralized exchange, sure. At least they're on Ethereum, right? At least they're bringing their liquidity. At least they're getting rid of cloud and going into the Ethereum ecosystem. I think about it more like that.
Yeah, I mean, vanilla vanilla in financial services when we've got an audience of degenerates is again, maybe, arguably not appealing, but nonetheless, I take your point. Let's stay on that and stick with that stable coins right now, so that it's an analogous thing that has happened is, in terms of being your own bank, actually what we've got is Circle is basically a bank and delivering yield on its stable coin and not passing any of that on, right? That's basically what it is, okay? And we've got our native decentralized stable coins that have kind of fallen behind in the race, DAI, Go, whatever we want, okay? Forget the algo ones. But how does that feel for you, that we've got centralized stable coins that are basically behaving like banks and we're just mimicking financial infrastructure in US dollar pegged versions in TradFi? We're basically just replicating TradFi but with smart contracts, right?
Right. I mean, I think you need to have the dollar eventually, right? You cannot just have, I think synthetic stablecoins are dead, right? CDPs did not scale. AMOs, all sorts of algorithmic stablecoins did not work, because if you want to scale, and Rune said this, from MakerDAO as well, if you want to scale, all of your dollars eventually need to tie back to dollars, right? If you don't have that, your algo, your system, your protocol will eventually break, and people will lose a lot of money. Now, you mentioned something really important, which is about yield, and that's not going to get any better because of the Genius Act, right? These T-bill-backed stablecoins cannot just pass on the T-bill yield to the users if they want to be compliant, if they want to get all this money. But there are alternatives, like Ethena, for example, or Ondo, which are like hedge funds, right? And I don't love it, because I think that you can have these like TradFi integrations without having to trust people, right? Like there are a lot of hedge fund projects, like the ones I mentioned, where you just have to trust developers. I think that one good thing about having TradFi coming in is that they don't like that. They will not accept a DeFi team acting like a hedge fund, and they're going to enforce protections that maybe as an industry we haven't kind of enforced. And then it'll force us to build real open protocols, because if you look at the regulations today, they're not against decentralized protocols or open protocols. They're against the people lying, saying that they're decentralized, but instead they're centralized. And for example, we're building that, and I think a lot of people are trying to build that.
Okay, Grant, come back. Let's try and defend our precious DAI.
Okay. Have you seen the dollar lately? The DXY index is kind of plummeting. Our debt's exploding. Probably the dollar will stick around at least another decade or so. But
Okay, Ray Dalio.
yeah, but look, you have this platform that is decentralized. It's open. It has basically 0% inflation per year. And if all the dollars move onto it, who's to say ETH won't become the new dollar for the entire global economy? ETH is money, right? I think that's the real stable coin in the future.
Yeah, but okay, we're not trying to knock the dollar necessarily, but it's about the decentralized piece. Like, why have we given up the decentralized piece in the name of?
Well, I think it's just very easy to, there's like a closed arbitrage loop when you have a USDC or USDT. This is why Maker, DAI used to always depeg, right? It'd always be at like $1.02 or 98 cents or something, and because they didn't, and then they kind of acquiesced with their DAI stability reserve, and so they basically have centralized stable coins backing them too. So even DAI, I would argue, is not.
I mean, DAI doesn't even exist, right? It's USDS now.
Yeah. And so I would probably like Liquidity is the only real decentralized stablecoin, and that's pretty small.
And
so,
Rai.
Yeah, and Rai. So I think we've really taken the L on decentralized stablecoins. I have to bend over on this one, I guess.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But you mentioned something about developers, right? Code is law, but again, with TradFi coming in, the institutions coming, and actually there's like armies of compliance guys and lawyers kind of basically converting law into code or codifying the law of what we're doing. So can you actually have smart contracts that execute autonomously, or do you have to pick the regulatory path, or are they not mutually exclusive? Is it fine that we've got these armies of lawyers scrutinizing our smart contracts and we can't just let them run free in the world?
Yeah, well, I think we actually have something that we don't think we have. Like, we have centralized systems that are now finally regulated, which is great. And then we have lies, right? Like decentralized protocols that say they're decentralized, but really they're like a team with a multi-sig. and that's based in the Bahamas or the Cayman Islands, and like if they lose your money, you're screwed. Like you're done. Like you're not getting your money back. And so I think that the TradFi people would love decentralized, fully autonomous contracts because there are no international bodies that can protect investors cross borders, especially with how globalization is going the wrong way right now.
That's right.
And so
Yeah,
if you're
making my point here.
But
Keep going.
But I think this is where actually TradFi likes open protocols. It's not the case that the TradFi people will say code is not law. Actually, I think that TradFi people are pushing us towards autonomous protocols because they want guarantees, they want immutability, and that's way better than what law can provide. Because law, you have to pay lawyers to go to court, and you may get some money back in recovery, but with contracts, I mean, there's no discussing with a contract. So maybe this is a point where
Yeah,
TradFi
I have
agrees.
to disagree on that one. TradFi definitely doesn't want us to be autonomous. They want their control. You know, they want to have their revocation functions, their freezing functions. They want to keep their transfer agents. You know, the banks like being banks. They don't want to be disintermediated. So I think they're kind of, they see the opportunity in crypto, they see the profits, but I think some of them also know it's their doom.
Well, that's what people might think, but like especially after the elections, we saw a shift, right? Like if you look at our cap tables, only TradFi, Franklin, IMC, SIG, these guys are all using our protocol. We don't have any legal agreements with them. We don't like have any sort of like off-chain relationship, but they're using our protocol. They are abiding by the law of our code. And they're the largest institutions in the world. So I think in practice, this is actually happening that people are adopting the code.
Well, there's still a lot of ambiguous space, I think. Some of you might know the EU is considering regulating smart contracts directly, which I don't know how they're going to do that, but it's...
NGMI.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
Europe
we're not
regulates
touching the
bottle
EU for a while.
caps, and I think...
But let's move on. Since you mentioned capital, the other thing that's happening is, you know, investment capital is coming into this space. And actually, if you really look at DAOs, I'll go with you, Grant, okay? If we really look at DAOs, the investment money that has come into them is generally pretty concentrated. And quite increasingly, a lot of that is concentrated in institutional hands, whether strategic or VC or investment money from TradFi. Do we have a problem with that, the capture of governance as well in DAOs from TradFi?
I think almost every DAO is a LARP.
Yes.
You're on the debating that.
Oh, sorry.
Supposed to say decentralization.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Gentle reminder. By the way, don't forget to vote, guys. The QR code's up there.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
the
look,
delegates
okay.
are great. They
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think capital concentration is bad either. But
So the DAO dreams are dead.
We're doing great, guys.
no, it's not dead.
well.
Like
I mean, what's the difference between BlackRock putting $1 billion into Aave and
Yeah.
Justin's son? I'll take BlackRock. I love you, Justin, but you know,
No, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
I think we already centralized in capital because it's about how many people are here. If you have 100,000 centralized users using you, you're more decentralized than if you have one self-custody user, right?
Yeah, this is like a boxing debate where you're like hugging in the ring. It's like it's not what
Like
we
caressing
have
and slapping at the same time.
All right, get back in your corner.
Right. So let's summarize. You're saying that TradFi is not coming to eat our lunch. They're very nice, friendly people, and they're going to be using our protocols, and this is good for us as a community, right?
Yeah, and they've just been waiting for regulation. I mean, they're just scared. If they were not risk averse, they would be here like making protocols. But they're risk averse. They're dealing with the world's money, right? It's trillions of dollars. If they make a mistake, they go to jail. If our people make a mistake, they go hide in Dubai, right?
Yeah, they go to jail.
It's like it's a different level of consequence. So, but I think they genuinely want this. Like they are maybe the SEC people that got fired recently don't want it, but most people want it.
All right, Grant, do you really think that TradFi is coming in and they're not just basically using us as a technology upgrade for their crappy underlying?
Oh, they totally want to do that. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, but you know what? ETH is going to win. Like, it's a little like what people say about AI. It's going to spit out gold before it paper clips all of us. You know, I think ETH will do that to TradFi. So, you know, they're going to use
So we are the Trojan horse, the Ethereum community. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're gonna put the world on Ethereum rails, and we're going to disintermediate TradFi, and the world's going to run autonomously.
And then we'll have a party.
We will have a party.
That's what
it's
we
called
do.
ECC.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Okay, guys, I hope all of you have voted. We've got about 50 seconds to get your votes in. But listen, thank you so much, Benjamin, and thank you, Grant. That's been a really fun debate.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do we have a? Oh wow! You TradFi LARPies. Okay, great.
I invited all my friends here. That's what it was. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course.
You need
I know
a
you-
hug.
All right. By the way, I actually agree with a lot of his points.
Yeah. he actually changed sites for me last minute. So
No. We came in basically in agreement, I think.